Here is the exact moment at the 2019 Arnold Classic when Arnold called out the Classic Bodybuilding champion to do a vacuum pose. Now, that champion either did not know what the pose is or could not do one, or smartly chose not to do one upon being called out on stage and offered up a great front double bicep shot instead. Any way you slice it, this is a great shot, but it's not a vacuum. Hi, this is John, and welcome back to my channel. Yeah, the vacuum pose, the vacuum pose. So, listen, back in the 70s, during the Arnold era, some people call that the golden era of bodybuilding. The standard, it seemed to be among a lot of the pro bodybuilders and a lot of top amateurs, was to be able to do a great vacuum pose that's sucking the muscles up into and under the rib cage as they were performing certain poses, or just a standard vacuum pose like Frank Zane used to do. That pose in particular was it was considered the aesthetic pose. It was considered, the standard by which classic bodybuilding was judged at the time. And as the years have gone by, it's kind of fallen by the wayside. Some people claim that, those bodybuilders, the pro bodybuilders over the years, due to their distended abdomens. Now, that can be either from the tons of food that they eat, a lot more food these days than they used to in the olden days, as well as the drugs. Perhaps it's a theory that some of the drugs, can make those organs expand on the inside of the abdominal wall. I don't know the exact reason why their abdomens are thicker, bigger, distended. Some people just claim it's simply a matter of muscle control. They don't have control over their abdomen muscles, abdominals. I don't know exactly which one of those reasons, or a combination of all of them it may be. But the reality is the vacuum pose has kind of fallen by the wayside. It's just not popular anymore for a pro bodybuilder or an amateur bodybuilder to pull up into a nice vacuum, doing it directly as a vacuum pose, like I said, as Frank Zane used to do it, or doing it as part of a double bicep from the front. A lot of guys used to do that as part of their double bicep pose, and it looked nice. It showed off the sides of their rib cage. It showed off, the ability to control the muscles of their abdomen. It made their waist look tiny as they sucked up those muscles up under their rib cage. So, having the ability to do that, though, a lot of people just don't have it naturally and have to work at it. And I mean really work at it. I was not one of those people. I was kind of, born with the ability to just do a good vacuum. My brother is the same way. Even before he ever even lifted weights, he was able to do a good vacuum pose. I included it in a lot of routines early on when I started bodybuilding. And to this day, I can do a good vacuum. It doesn't matter, in shape, out of shape, you'll see. And so, show mercy on me right there, right? This isn't contest condition right here. I'm not standing on stage right now. So being able to do a vacuum, however, as you just saw, just pulling it up after, blowing all the air out, it can be a little bit taxing. It pulls up against all of your organs, your abdominal wall does. And there's been a little bit more of a movement these days. Specifically, Arnold has called it out at the Arnold Classic with some of the winners when he's had them up on stage. With that microphone in his hands, Arnold has requested them to do a vacuum pose, as you've seen. And you'll see here that Arnold, when he requests it, a lot of the guys can't even do a really good vacuum pose. What they consider to be a vacuum pose is simply holding their stomach in, not being able to suck it in even further so that it's actually touching or going towards their spine. So that's really the goal in a vacuum pose, to pull in the abdominal wall as close inward towards your spine. So yeah, it is mashing up against a lot of the organs. And in classic bodybuilding right now, there is more of a move towards developing the classic vacuum pose as more of a standard classic bodybuilding pose, to bring it back and make it a standard. Now, I'll tell you what, I think it's wholly unfair to call that a new standard with some of the current bodybuilders that are out there right now, because a lot of them have not practiced it. And, you know, you could take a guy who, you know, just won the Classic Bodybuilding Mr. Olympia, and if suddenly you said this is a new standard pose and everybody must do it, you know, without any notice, he may not be able to do it, and he may lose points on that one pose. So I think it's a little unfair to drop a new standard on everybody right out the gate with no notice. So what I'm for doing is, here's a solution, is giving them 2 or 3 years to adjust to and say, all right, as of the Mr. Olympia in 2021, Classic Bodybuilding Mr. Olympia in 2021, we're going to be using the vacuum pose as a standard prejudging pose. And you must include it in your routine, somewhere in your routine, whether it's a straight-on vacuum pose or as part of one of your other poses, but you must do at least one vacuum pose. So I'm giving a solution to this. Rather than one guy pointing at another guy saying he can't even do a vacuum, he's not aesthetic enough, or several people, you know, claiming that, well, this is a pose from a bygone era. So rather than having that be the case, let's give the guys a chance to adjust to it all and say, as of 2 or 3 years from now, that would be a really nice pose to add to Classic Bodybuilding. And it will probably increase the popularity of the sport quite a bit. So that's my solution to things as far as that one pose goes. Do I like, or particularly like, the fact that some of the guys are being called out on stage right after they've won a big show to hit that vacuum pose? Ooh, being put on the spot. Well, obviously Arnold threw it down there, and if you're going to compete in one of his shows, obviously you better be ready to hit a vacuum shot. That's the best thing I can tell you. So yeah, be prepared is always the best way to go about doing things. So a lot of the Classic Bodybuilders, you can see the writing on the wall. The vacuum pose in some ways is coming back, or is being looked at as more of a standard. So yes, you should be practicing that vacuum pose in all positions, from the front, maybe from the side chest even. It looks kind of neat to have a tiny little waist when you do that. So that's my 2 cents on the subject. Vacuum poses. Arnold calling people out on stage with vacuum poses. I kind of like that. It creates a little bit of a buzz, you know, in the sport, and something different for that matter. So that's it. From my heart to you, John Hart. Hey, before you go, please hit that subscribe button off to your right, that red button. That helps a lot. And also the thumbs up on your left. And of course, as always, I'm inviting comments. Hit me with your comments straight down below in the comments section. You know I always get back to you guys. If you ask my opinion, or if you have a suggestion, or if you have an alternative way of doing things in Classic Bodybuilding, or a new way of bringing back that vacuum pose, or maybe it's just abolish it all the way, just getting rid of it as something just from a bygone era. But that's it. Hit me with your comments down below. Thank you very much.